Hello, hello, good morning. It's Monica from Life is Art, and I was just in surround sound. That's so exciting, or weird, one or the other. And we're joining you today for this Saturday 10 a.m. technique at the Tales of Beatrix Potter online crop. And if you're joining me live, you can just say hello or howdy. I see Shannon's already here, ready and waiting. Howdy, Shannon. And if you're watching later on replay, you can say replay or just leave a comment. And because I like to see who pops by to join us a little later, because sometimes we're busy when things are happening live, and that's okay. That's the wonderful thing about having recorded videos up there. You can watch them whenever it's convenient for you, right? Good morning, Joanne. Good morning, good morning. So today we're going to be looking at a stamp set in the March-April catalog, and it is called the Honey Bunny card making stamp set, this lovely little one over here. We've already done at least one or two projects with this stamp set. I think we did something during the catalog launch party with this one. But we're going to be looking at it again, and we're going to be doing a fun technique, super simple, that requires masking, just like our project yesterday had masking, but it's a little bit different. And so I hope you guys have fun learning this technique. I'm calling it stamping around. And no, it's not what teenagers do or kids do when they get upset and they go stamping around the house. Not the same thing, but it's pretty cool. Hey Heather, good morning, good morning. Happy Saturday. So we're going to be using the Honey Bunny card making stamp set. We're going to be using this little cluster of florals and foliage over here. We're also going to be using this little pair of leaves, and then we're going to be using one of the 3 sentiments. There's also a lovely wreath here and some little petals and a little group of flowers. We have "You Make Me See Things More Beautifully," "Love You," and "Thanks a Bunch." And these little ones can actually tuck inside this wreath here, which is super fun. But we're going to be using this larger sentiment, which I love. I love that sentiment. So let's get started. We're going to be making a little square card today. And so we're going to be starting out with a piece of white daisy cardstock that has been cut to 3 7/8 inch square. 3 7/8, and 7/8 is halfway between the 3/4 inch and then the next inch. So 3 7/8. And I've also got sticky notes. Now I have 3-inch sticky notes, and the area that sticky notes are great for masking, especially if you're doing something quick, because they've already got a bit of adhesive that's not going to rip your paper on there. It's just super simple to do it that way. However, I don't want to mask that much of my piece of cardstock. I want it to be a little smaller. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to remove one of the sticky notes, and the sticky part is over here. I'm going to grab my little photo trimmer, and I'm going to stick the unsticky part in, and I'm going to chop an inch off because I want a 2-inch sticky note, and I don't have 2-inch sticky notes. So I'm just going to make my own 2-inch sticky note. So we're chopping an inch off of the bottom of the sticky note, and then we can even take our piece that we've just chopped off and line our sticky note up with the edge of that. And that's hiding now our sticky bit. And we can stick it back in our trimmer and trim another inch off of the side of our sticky note. So now we should have a 2-inch by 2-inch sticky note, and that didn't get stuck inside of our trimmer. If it does get stuck, it's okay. There's ways to figure it out. You just take the edge of your sticky note even and just run it underneath the other sticky note and then pull it out. It's not that hard. So now we have a 2-inch by 2-inch mask. Shannon's like, oh, dang, I thought you were going to give us parenting advice with the stamping around. No, sorry. Sorry. Not doing it. Okay, so we've got, where was I going in my brain? We have a 3 7/8. So for 3, okay, I'm going to come down to the bottom here. I need to find my center. So we would come over 1.5, and then and then right there. So we're kind of in between the 4 and the 8-inch lines in both directions. So you see that now I've kind of got it centered. And if you put your little corners, this is actually the easiest way to do it. If you're trying to center it on your Versamat, put your 4 corners on those diagonals if you're working with something that's exactly a square. Okay, because what I want to do is I want to get my 2-inch sticky note centered in the center of my 3 7/8 piece of paper. I could eyeball it. I certainly could. I could give it my hero best. But this is 2 inches. So if I come and line my ruler up at the 5-inch line, that's 1 inch from the center, half of the size of my sticky note. Then if I come with another straight edge, so I'm going to use my pack of sticky notes, and I come 1 inch from the center, right? So I'm 1 inch above the center line. Then I can take my little sticky note with my little sticky bit on it and tuck it right in that little corner. I know that's a little bit of math happening there, but it's okay. We're just making sure we're in the center, and then we come exactly 1 inch out from the center in 2 directions, and then our sticky note is definitely, fingers crossed, gonna be in the center. Good morning, Janet. How are you doing? All right, so I've got my little cluster. I've got ink on my block, but it's dry ink. It's okay. I've got my little cluster of flowers from this. Why am my brain? Why my brain? From the honey butter, but honey bunny. That's the problem. I keep trying to say honey butter, and it's not. It's honey bunny. The honey bunny card making stamp set. I've got it loaded onto my block, and I'm going to come in with sage ink to do this stamping, and we're going to do some stamping around. That's where I got the name for the technique that I'm going to do. So I'm going to ink this up in the sage. Make sure it's good and inked. You know what? I should be working on a flipped over Versamat. Let me grab my flipped over Versamat. Because we're doing stamping, and we're doing one-shot stamping. Because if it doesn't work, then we just have to get a new piece of paper. All right. I'm going to ink up my stamp. Ink, 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 ink. I'm going to come a little closer to me so I can see what I'm doing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp on the half on the mask, half on the paper, just like that. And my my little florals can go right close to the edge of the paper, but half of the image is stamped onto the mask. Okay, and then I'm going to turn it around 180 degrees, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. Now you'll notice that the way that I've positioned the stamp, we've got the little extra flowers there. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side with those little extra flowers going out to the edge. Okay, and then I'm going to turn to this next side here, and I'm going to turn my stamp around. So this time I don't have the flowers going out to the edge. I have the little leaf petals going out to the edge. So let's ink that up with the sage. I'm going to scooch it closer to myself. You can still see? Yes, you can still see. And then we're going to stamp this, and our little leaf petals can go right near the edge of the paper, just like the other one. Turn it again. See, we're stamping around. We're not stamping in around, because we could have put a circle mask in there. We certainly could have, but we put a square. So we're not going in around, but we're stamping around the edge. There we go. And then to fill in the little corners from that same Honey Bunny card making stamp set, we have this little duo of leaves. So we're going to ink those up in the sage. And then we're going to come to our first corner. We're going to try not to stamp on top of the other lines that are there. So you're going to have to kind of just take your time and line it up. Turn to the next corner. So you may have to kind of jiggle-joggle it around. It might not be even, just to make sure that you don't run over any lines if you can help it. It might be impossible to avoid it entirely. I'm pretty close touching those ones. That's okay. It all comes out in the wash. And then this last one, there we go. Lovely. Now, before we take our mask off, let me see, we can move this out of the way. Before we take our mask off, there's one more step that I want to do. I'm looking for my stamp chamois. Look at that. I even have my stamp chamois here, so I can give my stamps a little swishy swish. I don't always do that, but before we get rid of our sage, I'm going to come in with one of our little round sponges. You buy these, it's a little circle, and then you just use your scissors and trim it into 6 sections. And then you get these cute little wedges that you can use for doing just a little bit of pouncing. Now this is just a little bit. I don't want to go heavy-handed with this. And I'm just going to kind of narrow down my wedge so it's not a huge wedge. Okay, you're going to get your fingers right in there. Narrow it down. And then I'm just going to pounce very lightly on the edge of my mask. And I'm going to do more at the corners where all the leaves are, but not a lot, like just a hint, than I do where the flower is. But I still will do a little pounce at the flowers. And I'm going ever lightly, lightly. And because you can go lightly, and if it's not enough, you can add more. But if you go too dark at first, and it's too much, then you got to start over again. So better to go a little lighter, and then you can adjust. Okay, I think we've got all the way around. And now, because of the magic of a sticky note, once you decide which side is not stuck down, you can just lift it and take a look and just get a good idea. And you see, because we added that little bit of inking, it really creates a distinct square in the center. I should have shown you before I did the inking what it looks like with just the stamping, but that just a little hint of dab, dab, dab with the sponge lets you have more of a crisp line without having a line around your center square. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and take my mask off. Now I could leave that mask on there for a while if I wanted to, because I'm going to do some coloring. So if you're a little unsure about your coloring, you could always, leave that mask on there until you're done coloring. But, you know, it's all good. So I'm going to be doing my coloring today with some colored pencils. These are the Colorista colored pencils. I haven't checked to see if they're still available online on the website, but hopefully they are. But if you have them or any other colored pencils, they'll surely work. So I'm going to be using 2 sets. I'm going to be using the Perfect Portrait and the Natural Landscape. And I only need 2 pencil crayons for this, the colored pencils. So from the Perfect Portrait, I'm going to be using, if I can get a hold of it, the Rosy Blush. Rosy Blush is the color I'm going to use. Now, when you're using colored pencils or watercolor pencils, just reaching into my trash can here. It's good to have a little scrap piece of paper on the side that you can just give a little bit of color on and get yourself a little flat spot. If you come to your paper with a pointy tip and you do one of these and you're not meaning to, it can, I don't even know if you can see that, whether it's going to focus. It could kind of dig into the paper, and then as you're trying to color, it won't let you get a nice smooth blend. So you always want to make sure you get a flat spot on your pencil crayon before you come in. So I'm going to use this rosy blush to add some color to my large flower petals. And the ones that already have some ink on them from the sage are going to be a little more shaded, but that's okay, because then it kind of has the look that it's in a shadow under the edge of something. And once I've filled in all of the petals very lightly, then I'm just going to come back and just coming out from the center, add a little bit of darker color with the rosy blush. So I'm going to start in the center and I'm going to push a little harder. If you are coloring with colored pencils and you always push the hardest right from the get-go, then you don't have an opportunity to add more color later. But if you start out very light-handed, then you can add more color later. So let's take a look there. Can you see that little bit of pink color that's gone on there? And then, so that's the only flower over there. So let's turn to this side here. Make sure we still have a flat spot. There we go. And we're going to color. And I find coloring with the pencil crayons are just as fast as markers, if not faster sometimes. And sometimes it's even nice just to go in little circles like I'm doing right now. And then when you're adding a little bit more detail, you might want to, you know, go in a straight line, kind of like you're coming out from the center, like the veins of the flower petals would be, just because, you know, if you see any of your color lines, then it just looks like texture on the leaf, on the petal. And then where you can also color very lightly on these couple little extra ones here, they color up real quick. And then we can add a little bit of depth just around the center, like so. Let's go to the next one. Does anybody find that they enjoy coloring? That I know there was the big trend a few years ago with all the adult coloring books, you know, to relieve stress and all that kind of stuff. Are you one of those people that find coloring very relaxing, or does coloring kind of give you give you a little bit of panic? How does coloring make you feel? I think because we stamped with the sage first, we've already got a nice little layer of green on there. Hey, Brenda, good morning. Janet's doing well. Awesome. Sorry, I'm looking down at my coloring so I don't see your comments as they roll in. I find coloring very nice. I like to doodle. I like to color. Some people, though, they get too... they get inside their own heads and they think it needs to look perfect. Nothing ever needs to look perfect. And the more you do things like this, coloring, fussy cutting, the better you tend to get at it. And the way I like to look at it is practice makes progress. A friend of mine told me that saying one time, and I totally agree. Practice makes progress. Practice does not always make perfect. And frankly, we don't really need to strive for perfection. That just makes us disappointed quite often. But progress is always a good thing to strive for. Okay, so then from the natural landscape, they're all sliding out. I'm going to be using the woodland green, which seemed kind of close to the sage. So I'm going to take this and again come in with my piece of paper, make sure I have a flat edge. Now for this, I want to color very lightly because it's not exactly the same green. I don't want it to be super dark. I just want hint of green. Joanne finds it relaxing. Brenda says, I sometimes like coloring and other times I get anxious because I should be doing something more productive. No. See, coloring is very productive. You know, it gives you the happy hormones as long as you're not getting too anxious about it. But yeah, I get what you're saying. But what I do is things like this that I find relaxing, doodling, coloring, fussy cutting. Sometimes I do them while I'm already doing something that is maybe less productive. Like if I'm watching a movie or watching a TV show, I can be doing this and then I can feel like I'm being productive when I'm doing something else to avoid, you know, housework or some such. Janet's been loving coloring since she was a kid. Yep. Me too. I find it just super fun. So I'm just going to come in and color these leaves just very lightly. So I'm only adding just a hint of green to the places where the ink didn't already dab on top. Okay, just a little hint of green, super lightly. And I can even have some white spaces left. That doesn't bother me at all. This is definitely a time when you want that very light hand. You can even add a tiny little bit extra down at the base if you want to do a little bit of texture happening there. And we're just going around. This is going to go quick because we're not doing any major details on these. Just a smidgen of color. I always find I have to turn my paper when I'm coloring, when I'm doodling. So I know it looks weird on camera to have the paper always turning, ever turning. But we're stamping around. So this is the going around part. I did the stamping around, now we're doing the coloring around. There we go. Get those last little bits. How's it looking? I know sometimes, because my camera's kind of high up today, sometimes it's a little hard to see what's happening down here. All the details, but we'll get there. We'll show you in a second. I could lower my camera, but then it'll give you all the motion sickness. There we go. Almost done. Just a couple more. Do. Gotta do the do's while we're coloring. Some people, speaking of music, some people like to listen to music while they color. Alrighty, so that was our woodlawn green. So let me lift that up so you can see the little details that we've got going there. Doesn't that look so pretty and soft and beautiful? Those are lovely colors together. Yes, Brenda. Alrighty. Now, I want to turn this so that I have my little flowers at the top and bottom and the leaves at the side. I think that kind of makes it look a little more like this should be the vertical type of thing. And then I'm going to come in with my sentiment and my intense black ink for this, just because I want my sentiment to be in black. I'm going to ink this up. Oh, I should have brought in my stampy. Let's do that. And then we can have no excuses if it doesn't turn out. We can't blame it on it. Okay, I brought it close to myself because I want to try and get it in the middle. You make me see things more beautifully. I think that went pretty close to the center. Hooray! Give this a clean on the stamp chamois. So there we go. We've got our stamping done. Isn't that a fun technique where you just kind of go around, make yourself a little mask? And if you don't have a sticky note, you can use something else, a piece of printer paper or something, and just put a little tiny dab of either repositional adhesive or just a really tiny dab of whatever adhesive you use, and then use your rub and remove eraser to take it off after. You just have to be really super careful when you do that. Yeah, you just have to be really super careful because it'll also try to leave a little residue if you're not careful, and you know, you just have to be careful. All right, where are we going next? How many times can I say we have to be careful? I'm going to go ahead and adhere this down to a piece of black cardstock that has been cut to 4 inches square, just to kind of pick up on that black from the sentiment and to give a nice crisp edge all the way around. So our white daisy was 3 7/8. This black is 4 inches. So we've got just, I'm gonna help myself out. I need something to show me the edges of the black because my eyeballs can't differentiate as well. We have just a tiny edge of the black all the way around. Now, when I was doing a little bit of my stamping, I did notice I got a little smidge of green, a little smidge of green, a little smidge of green, something on my stamp block, probably this one, was picking up ink that I didn't catch, but it's barely there, so I'm going to ignore it. And you guys can ignore it too. You probably wouldn't have noticed except for I pointed it out. We're always our own worst critic, right? But it's all good. Then I want to bring in a piece of pattern paper from the Honey Bunny collection. So I did take my cues for color from the Honey Bunny collection. So we've got this beautiful sort of brocadey kind of pattern here. I don't even know if it'll focus on the pattern in the camera, but it's very subtle, very soft, matches nicely. It's in the peach, so it's not exactly a pink, but it kind of looks nice with our florals that we have going on here. And we're going to stick those two together. This has been cut to 4 1/4 inches square. We're doing everything square. It almost makes me think that this is going to be a square card, just like we did for Stash Dash this past week. We had to make square cards. Must have had it in my brain. So then, because it's going to be a square card, I need to make my own base. So I've got a piece of white daisy that is 4 1/4 by 8 1/2. We're going to score it down the center along the 8 1/2 inch side. Let me grab that. And we're going to score it up 4 1/4. Line it up. Score it down. And we're going to fold it with the bump side to the inside. And because I'm not using a scoreboard, I'm going to just make sure that all my edges line up before I crease it down. And there we go. Pretty good. All right. And then let's attach our card front onto our card front. Imagine that. That must be why they called it a card front. Brenda's liking it. Sometimes we just have to give in to the florals and do some stamping around. All right, now I want this to be a top opening card. So I'm going to put my fingers on the creased bit and just let my fingers do the judgment of when I've lined up, and then lay that down. And now we have our top folding little card, but we need to add just a little something else. And I know you can't get the bitty sparkles anymore because they're retired, but we do have the clear sparkles available still. And I'm sure if you have some, they're in your stash. One of them just popped off over here. So let's go ahead and we'll add a couple little sparkles. There's a clear sparkle and a bitty sparkle. And maybe one more bitty sparkle down there. I was thinking about putting them in the center of the flowers, but I think that'd be too much. Too much. It's a little card, and I want just a hint of a glimmer of something sparkly on there. So there we go. Such a simple technique. You just mask a piece of your paper and do some stamping around. And I like that we stamped in the sage so that we already had a base of green going before we even started with our coloring. If you do stamp with the water-based inks, you can't use your you can't use the markers with it because it'll get a little mushy. But with the crayons, the colored pencils, it works beautifully. So we started out with our white daisy. We masked with our sticky note. We stamped around the center. We used 2 different stamps from the Honey Bunny card making stamp set. And then we did a little bit of inking with our round sponge just to make that square in the center more distinct. Adding in color with our colored pencils from the Perfect Portrait and Natural Landscape sets. And then we layered it up with some black cardstock and some pattern paper from Honey Bunny. Few little sparkles, and I think that is so cute. So I hope you enjoyed seeing that technique of stamping around using a mask and creating a nice little focal point for your card. If you get inspired by this and make a project like this of your own, be sure to take a photo of it and post it when I post the photos of the project on the Facebook page, and that way we can all see and enjoy what you created and feel even extra specially inspired. All right. Have a wonderful rest of the morning. We will be on at 11:30 for Chat and Craft, and we'll see you then. Toodaloo. Bye.